Welcome to the Ad Nauseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, Ad Nauseam listeners, to episode 202 of our podcast. As always, my name is Dr. David C. Noe. I'm here in the vomitorium. It's kind of shivery, isn't it, Winkle?
It is a little chilly down here.
It's shivering your timbers, I'd imagine.
It is, man. It's rough.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm cold.
Yes?
Yeah, we recently got the big snow dump.
We
here.
did.
Yeah.
The voice you hear on the other end of the microphone is one Dr. Jeffrey T. Winkle.
That's me.
Professor extraordinaire at Grand Rapids Community College, formerly a colleague at that place we don't mention too often.
No, we try not to.
But you're keeping it real over there.
I'm doing my best.
Are you giving final exams yet?
We're in the last week of regular
Okay.
classes this week, and the exams are next week. So
Forming impressionable young minds?
indeed,
Okay.
but also piled high and deep.
Yes.
Yep.
Wow, that's what a PhD stands for,
That's
right?
exactly right. Now, how about yourself, Dave? How you doing?
Well, I just came back from a wonderful trip to southern climes. This time I didn't manage to cross the equator, but I did get very close.
You did?
Yes, I did. So I went to Uganda, and I got to teach Greek for 2 weeks at the Knox School of Theology in Mbale, Uganda.
Nice. Was it tropical?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, the time there was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I fell back into an old routine of teach, eat, read, sleep.
That's not a bad routine.
It's not a bad routine.
No.
Did that for 10 days. Long hours of teaching, but it's what I love to do. So in the mornings, I was teaching intro, Attic and Koine Greek using some Moss materials.
Yeah.
To 8 men from Uganda, from South Sudan, from Kenya, and lots of places like that. In the afternoon, I was teaching a group of 15 men, a little bit of overlap, and I was teaching them rhetoric and public speaking.
Oh, wow.
And got to use a lot of things that I've learned in the course of, being a professor, but also some things from prepping for this show.
Yeah, excellent. Now, when teaching the Greek, these men had no Greek before? Were you
No Greek.
from the ground up?
We were starting from scratch.
All right, yeah.
And occasionally they would bring into the classroom some resource they had picked up somewhere because although, the conveniences of that particular environment are much less than here, which is a polite way of saying that America is considered a first world country and Uganda's not.
Yeah.
They still have quite a bit of access to technology.
Yeah.
So they would bring in with their phones, they'd have something from this or that biblical Greek author, and I would say, no, put that away, please.
You shut them down?
Of course. If you could use that stuff, you wouldn't need me. I traveled all the way here to teach you Greek.
Exactly.
So buckle up. Let's do it.
Buckle up. Unplug that stuff.
That's right. And we went through the alphabet, I don't know how many times. And it occurs to me, Jeff.
Yes.
We're going to get to the main point here, but you and I have often talked about how we have a high tolerance for repetition and that some people don't.
Right.
In terms of hearing the same joke over and over again.
But definitely there.
But consistently finding it funny.
Yeah.
Or liking the same song.
Yes.
A really good song. I could listen to it virtually forever.
Yeah.
Or you take a short break and you come back.
Right.
It occurred to me while I was in situ.
Yes.
That this might be the reason why I have had some success both learning and teaching language.
Because of your
appetite for repetition.
Yeah.
That kind of is really obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like it's baked into the cake. You you have to have that if you want to be successful.
That's right.
In learning, yeah.
If you find repetition really distasteful, you will probably not succeed in learning a language.
No, I think that's very, very true.
And it's the first time it ever struck me. So I was telling them, repetitio mater memoriae. Repetition's the mother of memory.
Right.
And so we went.
And were they into it? Could they deal with the repetition?
The first day, no. The second day, no. By the end of the first week, out of the 8, I had 6.
Okay, you lost 2.
I had. Well, they're all still there. They had checked out, but for 6 at least. I don't want to say I had them in the palm of my hand, but we were on the same team.
Yeah.
We're pulling in the same direction, right? Give me the 7 Greek vowels in alphabetical order. Alpha, epsilon, eta, iota, omicron, upsilon, omega.
Yeah.
Now say them backwards, and they could do it.
Fantastic.
So, you're trying to make a little bit of dent in, the vast ocean of human ignorance.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing for a couple of weeks.
That's great. Hey, retaining 6, and I did those other 2, they look at you with horror and saying, "Oh my gosh, what have I gotten into?"
Well, there was some of that, but I would say, "Hey, take your book out, open your book again. Here we go. I'm only here for 10 days." And then, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, either way, you'll be rid of me. So let's buckle down and do it.
Let's do it while we're here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And great guys, just really nice, hospitable folks.
Fantastic.
Really enjoyed it. So
Yeah.
you've been doing well.
Yeah.
It's been cold.
It's been cold.
But the scholarship is hot.
The scholarship is it's relatively hot.
Okay.
I'm getting to I have that end of the semester pile up going on right now, and so I've got papers and exams that I have to wade through all through next week.
Right.
So I'm not looking forward to that.
Blue bookery and so forth.
Blue bookery and that, but it's been a good semester, and I'm eager for the break coming up. Yeah.
Is this where we're going to break out discussion of ratio and coffee and how it helps the grading, or are we waiting on that?
Let's wait on that.
Okay, very good.
We can save that till later. Yeah.
So, Jeff, what is the ostensible theme for this week's episode?
Yes, this is part 2 of our look at John Wenham's fascinating book, Redating Matthew, Mark, and Luke, a fresh assault on the synoptic problem.
And how many years has it been since this book came out?
I believe this book came out in 1991.
Yes. So by my count, that's 34 years.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's also the year that you say the music died, right?
Yeah, pretty much. 92, I think.
92 was the last year.
Was when Kurt Cobain hit the scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
1991. So there's a little known fact, perhaps, about scholarship of this kind that 30 years ago is just yesterday. It's a moment ago.
True.
Because
yeah.
we're not talking about designing semiconductors or AI or something.
Right, right.
These are timeless subjects. So
yes.
30 years ago is pretty recent.
It is.
For studying, the origin of the New Testament.
Yeah.
So to review a little bit as we get into this, last week we had a quote from Jeb, and it was Jeb who identified this notion that there are two major questions in the history of Western literary studies.
Yes.
Right? The first one was, who was Homer?
Who was Homer?
Right. Who wrote the Iliad and Odyssey? Were they the same person, two different persons? What's going on? And the second one is
where do the Gospels come from?
Correct.
What's the order of them? And
that's right.
Yeah, the source material. Right.
Specifically, what's the relationship between the three?
Yeah.
So we got into questions of Q. So just to reprise for our audience here, because this is some complicated material, Jeff, what is the Q document and what's the hypothesis that goes with it?
The Q document, the Q stands for a German word, Quelle, which means source. And this relates to this idea that there is a unpublished or lost written source that the Synoptic Gospels are basing their own written accounts upon.
Okay.
Right. Or Q is somewhere in that mix.
Right.
Right.
So the two-source hypothesis then, right, most widely accepted scholarly solution to the synoptic problem, the question of the literary relationship among the three synoptics, leaving out John, which is thought to have been written much later, is this. The hypothesis suggests, number one, the Gospel of Mark was written first. This is known as Markan priority. Matthew and Luke independently used two main sources. They used Mark for the narrative framework and for shared stories, and they used this hypothetical Q source for the sayings and the material that they share, but which is not found in Mark.
That's right. Yep. So no physical copy of the Q document has ever been found. I mean, it is a purely theoretical.
Right.
I think in the previous episode we had compared it to something like Proto-Indo-European.
Yes.
It's a theoretical language from which so many languages descend.
Right.
Yep.
But in the case of PIE, this is my understanding, I was referencing it just this morning in class, comparing the Latin sequor, to follow, with the Greek hepomai, to follow. So surprisingly, those have a common PIE ancestor, so the linguists say. There has to be something like that, right?
Right.
My understanding is there's no other possible explanation. Wenham's book is intended to show that the Q hypothesis is bunk.
Yes.
He's trying to debunk it and show that there's another better explanation for the tremendous similarity between the Synoptic Gospels.
Right, because a big part of the Q hypothesis is that dating Mark comes compared to Wenham's argument rather late.
Right.
And so Wenham is saying you don't need the Q hypothesis to explain this. Any places actually Mark at a very early date, but not as even the first.
That's right.
Gospels. Yes.
Yep. So last time we had a gurgle in there, right?
Yes.
Kind of a hiccup.
Yeah, right. Because of your travels. And
That's right.
We couldn't do this cross.
Bite-sized podcast.
Yeah.
Yep. But in the previous episode, number 201, something like that, Now we come to the second part after covering the introduction in chapters 1 through 4.
Yes.
So to get us started today, I would like to read the final paragraph of chapter 4, which sets us up for chapters 5 through the end of the book.
Yes. All right, Dave, let's hear that quote.
All right, this is page 115. Says Wenham, to sum up our investigation of the internal evidence of the synoptic problem thus far, there seems to be a good case for believing that Matthew, possibly in a Semitic language, was the first gospel. His second point, that Mark, the Gospel of Mark, is substantially the teaching of Peter, who knew Matthew's gospel. And third, that Luke knew and used both Matthew and Mark. However, Mark shows a large measure of independence of Matthew, and Luke shows a large measure of independence of both. These conclusions, says Wenham, which have already to some extent anticipated it, will be seen to fit the external evidence remarkably well.
Yes. So Wenham, one of the ways he's really departing from the standard view is that he's not denying that there's not shared material when you kind of put the three next to each other, but he is arguing for a much greater deal of independence on the part of Matthew, Mark, and Luke alone. Yes,
that's correct. Matthew is first, according to the tradition, maybe written in Aramaic, some Semitic language, and then Mark and Luke, they take some things from Matthew, but they also show a lot of independence.
Just at the risk of repeating ourselves from the previous episode.
That's okay, because remember, we like repetition.
That's right. I know that we addressed at least briefly this issue of Matthew being originally written in Aramaic.
Yes.
But it might be helpful for myself and for the audience to kind of review, well, why does that matter? And my sense is that, one, it's controversial.
Of course.
This is perhaps, at the end of the day, impossible to prove.
Right.
But I think Wenham is saying that if indeed Matthew was originally written in Aramaic, that would be a mark in its favor for its primacy.
That's right.
So this would be an original document kind of before it's later translated into Greek and these other gospels show up in Greek.
That's correct. Okay. Because although many, many people in Judea spoke Greek, including all the apostles, not everybody did.
Right.
And so the argument would be it was written first in Hebrew so that it could reach the closest audience. So to start chapter 5 of Wenham, entitled Ancient Testimony to Matthew's Gospel, he gives this lovely summary right at the beginning. The fathers, meaning the church fathers, this is page 116, are almost unanimous in asserting that Matthew the tax collector was the author, writing first for Hebrews in the Hebrew language. So he mentions Papias, 60 to 130, Irenaeus, 130 to 200, Pantaenus, who died about 190, Origen, 185 to 254, Eusebius, died in 340, Epiphanius, died in 403, Cyril of Jerusalem, died in 386, and others write in this vein.
Yes.
The medieval Hebrew Gospel of Matthew in Evan Bohan could be a corrupted version of the original. So I haven't looked into that, but it might be interesting for
I'd not heard of that before.
A future episode.
That's interesting, yeah.
Wenham continues, though unrivaled, their tradition has been discounted on various grounds, particularly on the supposed unreliability of Papias, from whom some would derive the whole tradition.
Yeah.
So if the first guy is responsible for everything that follows and you can't trust him, then you can't get good fruit from a rotten tree. That's the idea.
Now that's interesting because one of the things as I was driving over here, I was thinking about and wondering about is that Wenham bases a lot of his argument on saying we can trust these early fathers in terms of the order of the Gospels, right?
That's right.
And so I was thinking about what the counter argument or the standard argument seems to be. Well, we can dismiss these arguments out of hand. Is it your sense that that's the primary argument, is that it all stems from Papias and we can't trust him?
Correct.
So therefore we throw out everything else.
That's right.
Okay. All right.
So, there's two propositions in that argument, right? The first is that he's not trustworthy.
Yes.
And the second is that everything comes from him.
Right.
If either of those are false, then there's good reason to believe that the suggestion of Matthean authorship in Hebrew is solid.
Yes. Okay. All right.
So, page 117, the common witness to authorship, says Wenham, in the case of the first gospel, the external testimony, although it has been rejected in all its main particulars by most modern scholars, is almost unanimous. The church fathers regularly make the following points. Number 1, Matthew the tax collector, otherwise known as Levi, one of the 12, was the author. Number 2, his was the first gospel to be written. Number 3, he wrote for Hebrews in the Hebrew language and in the Hebrew script. The most important testimonies are as follows. I'm just going to read a couple. Papias, 60 to 130, quote, Matthew collected the oracles in the Hebrew language, and each interpreted them as best he could. So Papias is preserved in Eusebius,
Yes.
much later author,
Right.
beginning of the 4th century.
Right. So hundreds of years.
That's correct.
Yeah.
First published before 303. Irenaeus, the second one, quote, Matthew indeed among the Hebrews, in their own dialect, put forth also a writing of the gospel, while Peter and Paul were evangelizing in Rome and founding the church. So if Irenaeus is correct, much before Eusebius, but after Papias, then Matthew wrote the gospel in Hebrew sometime in the late 40s or early 50s.
Yes.
Because part of Wenham's argument is that Peter went to Rome after the persecution that's recorded early in Acts, and he worked there for about a decade.
Yes.
But he was gone by the time that Paul arrived, and by the time that Paul wrote his letter to the Romans, because Peter's not mentioned in that concluding chapter.
So Mark is with Peter, but he's gone before the Neronian persecution.
That's correct.
Okay, yes.
But then apparently, if the tradition is correct, Peter comes back and dies in the Neronian persecution.
Right. That's right.
Which is a tradition I'm very inclined to believe, though it has no scriptural support.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. In this chapter, it seems
Right.
that Wenham's argument hinges on this view of Papias.
Right.
So, could you read something where
Sure.
where he's defending, where others would dismiss him?
Correct. So on 125, he summarizes very nicely the arguments against Papias.
Okay.
Entitled Discounting the Evidence of Papias, and then I can read how he actually defends it.
Great.
So he says, on the face of it, Papias has testimony of the highest quality, but he has had detractors both in the modern and in the ancient world. 4 means have been used to discredit his testimony. First, insistence on Matthew's derivation from Mark. Emphasis on the ambivalence of Eusebius. Attempted explanations of how Papias got it wrong, and attempted reinterpretations of Papias.
Okay.
So 4 different ways. The first one just insisting no Mark was first on stylistic grounds.
Okay.
And the others saying, well, Eusebius seems unsure if Papias is accurate.
Okay.
And then explanations of where Papias might be right or he might be wrong.
All right.
So attempts to explain how Papias got his ideas wrong. This is page 128. Those who rule out Matthean authorship or a Semitic original realize that they must try to explain how Papias got it wrong. One initial difficulty is to explain how the name of such an undistinguished apostle became attached to this gospel. We are so used to thinking of Matthew as the traditional author of the premier document of Christianity that we tend to forget that, apart from his role as tax collector, his call, the meal at his house, and his membership in the 12, the Gospels tell us nothing about him as an individual. Why then choose Matthew as the supposed author, either originally if it was pseudonymous or later if it was anonymous? Now that is a fascinating argument.
Now, just an immediate counter that pops in my mind, though. So, I mean, if indeed the author of the Gospel of Matthew is Matthew the tax collector, then it would make sense that he would be uniquely equipped to write and take notes.
Right.
Right. He would be perhaps more educated, more formally educated than the other disciples.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And there's a whole book on that subject, which I read and found very helpful by a fellow named Goodspeed. I can recommend it to the audience at some point if they want to read something like that. It's Edgar Johnson Goodspeed from 1959.
Yeah.
Matthew, Apostle and Evangelist, a study on the authority of the first gospel.
Interesting.
And Wenham deals with some of that, but he even says that Goodspeed says there's a place in the Gospel of Matthew where Jesus seems to indicate to Matthew, it's time for me to gather together, individuals to write down what I'm saying. And so that Matthew took his cue from Isaiah the prophet and said, well, I'm illiterate.
Yeah.
I've been recording tax collecting receipts. I've interacted with the Roman authorities. I have more education maybe than some of the other men. I better start writing stuff down.
Right.
It's speculative in some ways, but
Yeah.
but I find it really persuasive.
It is persuasive. Have you seen any episodes of the show The Chosen?
No.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Right. I know.
Come on.
I know the
Come
answer.
on.
I knew the
Come
answer when
on.
I asked it. However, I've watched a bit of it.
Okay.
And the way that Matthew is portrayed, I'm not trying to use this as an argument. In any sense,
Here we
but
go.
It's just interesting is that Matthew is portrayed as when he originally kind of is called by Jesus and
Okay.
starts to follow. He's an outcast among the group. The other ones don't like him
Because he's a tax
collector. But they also depict him as he's always has his tablet and he is writing things down all the time. Yeah, so it's
Okay.
And so I can't not see that image when we're talking about these arguments, right?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I think that is an excellent question. So how did the gospel end up bearing Matthew's name if he wasn't its author? And if it came up later, why choose him?
Yes.
Right? As the representative. So if you compare the Gnostic Gospels, right? The Gospel of Peter, the Gospel of Paul, the Gospel of Mary, those are forgeries, mid to late 2nd century. But the choice of title is obvious.
Right.
These were famous people.
Yes.
Matthew's not famous at all.
Right.
So why put his name on this gospel?
Yeah.
It's kind of strains credulity.
But could it fall into one of those things where the fact that it doesn't make sense is kind of a backwards argument for Matthean authorship?
Yes.
Right? So it makes me think of the detail in the Gospels where when Jesus is resurrected,
Right.
who goes to the tomb first? It's the women, right? And so from
Right.
like a first century point of view,
Yes.
it's like if you were trying to create something out of whole
Correct.
cloth and you wanted to persuade people,
Right.
why are you making the women discover the resurrected Savior?
Yeah, the
first?
witnesses.
Right.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, the Gospels are full of things like that.
Yeah, right.
Actually, which I think gives them the badge of authenticity against the Gnostic accounts, which are such obvious forgeries.
Right.
How can we make this plausible? Right?
Yeah.
So I'm very persuaded.
I mean, what
by
I would
that.
come back to is the fact that the traditional view of kind of who Matthew was and his
Right.
relative education, probably ability to write. Why wouldn't you choose him?
Right.
What that makes sense to me.
Yes.
But
very
okay,
good.
all right. But carry on, please.
Okay, so moving on to page 131, attempts to reinterpret Papias's expression Hebraidi dialecto. So Papias, according to Eusebius, says that Matthew wrote his work Hebraidi dialecto in the Hebraic tongue or in the Hebraic script. So says Wenham, another way of discounting the evidence of Papias has been to reinterpret the expression Hebraidi dialecto. Dialectos in all its 6 New Testament uses means language. J. Kurtzinger, however, has argued that the whole passage is concerned with the distinctive styles of Mark and Matthew, as opposed to language, right? Style.
Yep.
Papias lived in Hierapolis, which had a strong school of rhetoric. He is acknowledging Mark's deficiencies in style while defending his accuracy and apostolic orthodoxy. Mark did not write in order, but he was the middleman faithfully rendering Peter's message. Matthew, on the other hand, this is according to Kurtzinger's interpretation, which is trying to discredit the reliability of Papias.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yep.
Matthew, on the other hand, put his material together in an orderly fashion, sunatexata, and according to a Jewish way of doing things. Says Kurtzinger, each, Mark, Matthew, and any others, interpreted and arranged the divine oracles as best he could. So this is to say, well, the notion in Papias that it was written in the Hebrew language, no, that's not right. Papias means in a Hebrew style.
So if I getting it right, Kurtzinger is arguing that Matthew arranged his gospel
better
Hebraically.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Better than Mark.
Okay.
With more kind of prophetic notices and a fuller account of the geography and so forth. Now, Wenham will counter this on the next page by saying, if one reads the whole context in Eusebius, it doesn't seem to be about style. It's about the generation that followed the apostolic age, the writers who took the first rank in the apostolic succession. Eusebius's method is to mention a miscellany of facts which he thinks will be of interest to his readers, and at the same time to get over to them his own understanding of the history. So in other words, Wenham says, this misses the boat, Kurtzinger's interpretation, because Eusebius is not talking about style, he's talking about something quite different, and therefore Papias's claim that it was written in the Hebrew dialecto means in the Hebrew language.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So,
I find
that's one argument.
I find that persuasive. Okay.
Now, Jeff, to counter much of this skepticism of Papias and his evidence, Wenham quotes this other important scholar, Hengel.
Okay.
So I want to read from the bottom of 134.
All right.
Hengel argues that the attribution of authorship to Mark and Matthew is presupposed in Papias's work, which he thinks was written about 120 or 130, and that this goes back to the mysterious presbyter John. which brings us to a time between 90 and 100. That is to say, it brings us into the period when the Gospels were being composed, which he puts between 69 and 100.
Okay.
Now, Wenham will argue for a much earlier date,
Right.
but he's just saying, for the sake of argument, let's accept the later date for the Gospels. The evidence, according to Hangel, is still on the side of Papias's correct interpretation.
Okay.
Matthew's first.
Yep.
He then boldly argues that the terminology is rooted in Mark 1:1, where Evangelion, the Gospel, stands in the title. Christian communities, as soon as they had broken away from the synagogue, would set up a book chest containing Old Testament scriptures and Christian documents suitable for reading during worship. There was, Hangel maintains, a strict scribal discipline, and it was the scribes who circulated the Christian books who first invented the title Evangelion kata Markon, Gospel according to Mark, and then gave corresponding titles to Matthew, Luke, and John.
Okay.
So very early then, according to Hangel, whom Wenham quotes approvingly, the Gospels circulated under the same names, same titles, as we presently have.
Okay.
And if that's true, then Papias is reliable with respect to Matthean authorship. And it also helps explain why Matthew has his name on the book in the first place.
Right.
Why would you in the 3rd or 4th century pick Matthew?
Yes.
Right?
That makes no sense.
It doesn't.
Yeah. Yep.
So one scrap of external evidence to conclude page 135, this chapter, says Wenham, to put in the scales against Matthean priority. The fact that Eusebius mentions the circumstances of Mark's publication before that of Matthew might suggest that Mark is prior. This cannot be held to be a weighty consideration, though, seeing we have only short extracts from Papias's writings, but in view of the tradition of Matthean priority, it is a consideration to be borne in mind.
Okay.
All in all, the external evidence which makes the Apostle Matthew the author of the first gospel, apparently written in Hebrew, agrees well with our estimate of the internal evidence.
Yeah. So now he's putting he's giving Papias, kind of returning him to a private place, and so
that's right.
If he's in order, then the rest of the early fathers follow.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then in particular, the external and the internal evidence matches up. So he thinks he's on very good ground internally. Some of the stuff we covered last week, the last time, the number of pericopes and so forth.
Right.
So there's so many that seem similar, but it doesn't even come to half.
Yes.
And why does Luke seem to make odd choices if he's just copying Mark?
Yes.
Why these strange departures that are really inexplicable?
Right. So, now, on top of this, I don't think we need to go into it here, but I think Wenham also talks about how, in terms of like internal evidence, there's a number of Aramaeanisms in Matthew.
Absolutely.
Right? That's something kind of really before I'd have a look at this book I had not really heard before. But it was always, what was beaten into me was Mark is the gospel that seems to be written for the locals, right?
Oh, okay.
Because he's the one who will drop the Aramaic phrase here and there. And Wenham is saying, in many ways, Matthew is closer to Palestine than Mark is.
Yeah.
If indeed Mark is composing a big chunk of his gospel in Rome.
Right.
Yeah.
With Peter's guidance.
Right.
And also, of course, the well-known fact that the character of Peter, although he's given some honor in the Gospel of Mark, he's made to look much worse than in the other Gospels.
That's very true. Right.
He comes off as much more of a kind of a well-meaning klutz than he does in Matthew, Luke, or John.
Right.
And there's no infancy narrative.
Yes.
Right? As we find in both Matthew and Luke, which is, very interesting.
Well, what do you think about that? So if indeed this is Peter dictating the gospel to Mark, a question I think a lot of people would have is, well, why does Peter make himself look so bad?
Well, I think he's being more accurate.
He's being
more
honest?
He's more concerned to be honest.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, this is very much like what St. Augustine does, if I can digress for a moment.
Yeah.
Right? So he was converted in 386. 10 years later, in either 395 or 396, he writes the Confessions.
Mm-hmm.
After 10 years, of writing Christian literature and teaching, he had gotten quite a reputation.
Yeah.
People were coming to him from all over the Mediterranean. Augustine, answer this question, sort this out, because he had such a towering genius, right?
Yeah.
So what does he do? He says, let me give you the real explanation of who I am. Read my Confessions.
Yes.
Look at what really wicked person I was.
Yeah.
That's a deeply humble move.
Right.
And I think that Peter's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
If he is indeed behind the Gospel of Mark, which the tradition says.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I bring that up because I think that for a lot of people, their gut reaction is that if you're going to write something that involves your life story, your instinct would be to sand off the rough edges, right? To sell yourself as better. But that's hopefully was not Peter's intent at all.
No, I don't think so.
Right.
They say that something like 10 to 20% of every resume is padding. Did you know this?
I believe it.
I've submitted a lot of CVs for academic jobs, and resumes, and so forth. I think that number is pretty accurate.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I was there. I witnessed these things. Was I as instrumental in the accomplishment of these, various things as I present myself? No.
Right. I would also maybe argue that up to 90% of interviewers don't read the resume.
Oh yeah. So it's the perfect
beyond
storm.
The first page, right?
It's the perfect storm of ignorance.
Right.
You're right. Many interviews are not even intended to go anywhere. Right. They're just pro forma.
They're just pro forma, exactly. Yeah. Right. So that does it for chapter 5.
Yes.
But how does one continue the argument in chapter 6 or build on it?
Right. So I think we have just a little bit of time for chapter 6, but the title is Ancient Testimony to Mark's Gospel. Mm-hmm. So that the overall arc is chapters 1 through 4, internal evidence, 5 and following, external evidence.
Yep.
We looked at Matthew. Now what's the ancient testimony to Mark?
Yes.
And let me just read a little bit of the chapter summary here. He says, Eusebius quotes Papias, who in turn quotes John the Presbyter. Could that be John the Apostle? That's the question. Who says that Mark became Peter's interpreter and wrote accurately all that Peter remembered of the things said or done by the Lord. Interpreter probably means not that Mark translated Peter's Aramaic words into Greek, but that as a catechist, he expounded Peter's teaching. Eusebius contrasts the orderly arrangement of Matthew with the less structured oral teaching of Peter. Now, that's a really interesting point. That is really interesting. Isn't it?
Yes, yeah, yep.
So Matthew gives us a more robustly chronological account of Christ's life.
Yes.
Whereas Mark is written a little bit in terms of, and another thing I remember.
It's like, and oh wait, this happened.
That's right. So beginning, with the career of John the Baptist, the prophecies of Isaiah and Malachi, and ending with Christ's, passion, death, and resurrection. But in between, I don't want to call it stream of consciousness,
right?
But it does have kind of the mark of someone who is just reciting things as he remembers them.
Right. And this would account for some of the chronological disjunctures when you compare the Gospels. Right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Before we went on the air here, you were asking me about my trip to and from Uganda, remember?
Yes, I did.
And I was talking about
what a tale.
my sojourning in various airports, and always on my mind was your favorite word, the L word.
Yes, you were in many liminal spaces.
Oh,
right?
I was so liminal. I was living the liminal life, that's for sure. But as I tell you that story, right, and I tell someone else that story, I'm going to try to select the things I think you're going to find the most interesting.
Right.
And leave out certain other things that I would tell my wife or someone else. Right?
Indeed, yes.
It's just the nature of storytelling.
Yes.
I don't think that's at all in conflict with the notion that the Holy Spirit inspired Peter as he, told this tale to Mark.
Yeah.
In fact, it gives it that warm, authentic human touch.
Right.
That although, divinely coming, it comes through a person.
Right. And that's interesting. I think that I've heard that stylistic element in Mark explained explained by the fact that Mark was less educated.
Yeah.
And so he kind of writes in this more kind of haphazard kind of way.
Right.
But the argument that it's reflecting the orality of what Peter was telling him,
yes,
that's a whole other thing.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like the word that Wenham uses here as a catechist.
Yeah.
Right? So the notion is that Peter gave sermons on the life of Christ in multiple different settings,
right?
Things that he witnessed. And Mark was there learning, okay, so this is what I need to know about the Messiah as I hear it from Peter's lips.
Yes.
And it forms a kind of catechism. And then Mark writes it down. So it's not like Matthew's structure.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So continuing then, Irenaeus tells how Mark, the disciple of Peter, handed on Peter's teaching after the latter's, quote, exodus, probably his death. The anti-Marcionite prologue says that Mark wrote the gospel in Italy after the Exodus. Clement of Alexandria, so this is about 230 AD, says that Mark wrote at the request of leading Christians in Rome and that Peter later gave his approval. Origen says that Mark wrote on the instruction of Peter, There is thus a solid core of tradition associating Mark with Peter's teaching in Rome.
Okay.
So
All right.
to summarize that really is the summary statement, right? There's good external evidence, very good, solid, from different perspectives, that Peter lies behind Mark's gospel.
Yes. Yeah.
So, Jeff, it's at this point that we usually try to come up with some clever segue into the ads.
That's right.
And I just want to say, speaking of these theological topics, I was once grading a seminary paper,
Yeah.
if memory serves, and the student said something like this, that so-and-so used this as a segue into the next subject,
Okay.
but he did not spell it in the normal way,
Uh-oh.
S-E-G-U-E.
Yeah, what did he say?
He spelled it S-E-G-W-A-Y.
like the ridiculous
Scooter thing.
So let's ride the segue
Okay.
into the ads.
Let's do it.
This episode of Ad Nauseam is brought to you by the wonderful people at Hackett Publishing.
Hackett.
How about these guys?
Oh, just this week, guess what I received, Jeff?
What'd you get?
I received my complimentary copy of the collected works of Aristotle.
Oh my goodness!
Did you receive yours?
No.
It's in the mail.
Fantastic! I can't wait to see it.
It's beautiful.
Is it beautiful?
Absolutely gorgeous. Yes.
And let me guess, it's attractive.
It's purple.
It's a
It's royal.
it's royal. It's affordable.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
purple.
And I'm going to guess that the translations are extremely well done.
Out of this world.
Yeah.
CDC Reeve and the other guy whose name I can't remember.
Yeah.
These are fantastic.
Yeah.
I had an earlier copy of the collected works of Aristotle. It's okay.
Yeah.
This is going to set the bar. And
Yeah.
we are giving away a free copy.
That's right. Exactly. Do
Yes.
we have a date on that yet, or we're still
It's starting now.
starting now?
And in fact, Hackett set up a special website just for our contest and our giveaway.
Fantastic.
It's got a QR code and everything.
So we're going to put that on the website, right?
That's right. It's
Okay.
too long for me to say it now because
Yeah.
who wants to hear a long URL?
Right.
But if you check in the description of this program, you're going to want to go there. You're going to want to check it out, enter your name, and win this fabulous set. And after this, we might give away another set as well.
Fantastic. More good news. Hey, all those superlatives we just applied to the collection of Aristotle that you can apply to everything you're going to find at hackettpublishing.com. Go to that website, friends, and find the books that you want. Put them in the little satchel. And if you put in this coupon code AN2025, Dave, that will get them what?
20% off and a free trip to Jinja, Uganda.
What? Wait, where did this come from? What are you talking about Jinja for?
Jinja
Yeah?
is this tiny little city between Mbali,
Yes.
where I taught, and Kampala, which is the capital.
Yes.
And Jinja is the headwaters of the Nile River.
And am I to understand you went to Jinja?
I went through Jinja.
Yeah.
I passed over the Nile. I saw papyrus. I saw no crocodiles.
Yeah.
But I gloried in the fact that I had accomplished, thanks to the wonders of modern technology, something that the ancient Roman emperors only dreamed of.
That's right.
Don't you remember Nero said, I'm going to find the source of the Nile?
That's right. Yeah.
And Alexander wanted to find the source of the Nile?
0 for 2.
Yes. That's
right.
Whereas I succeeded in Jinja.
Yeah. Now, does this have anything to do with Hackett Publishing?
Let's see. As I was coming and going through Jinja, I had some Hackett titles with me.
Okay. All right.
So there's the segue.
Excellent. Yes. Well, friend, I'm sorry to say that if you put in that coupon code, you're not going to get a free round trip ticket to Jinja, but it will get you 20% off and free shipping.
That's right. I'd like to see you get that from some other kind of online river-based emporium. There's the connection.
There we go.
Nile.com,
That's right.
Danube.com, or that other one.
Yeah, exactly. No chance. Yep.
This episode of Ad Nauseam is also brought to you by the wonderful folks at Ratio Coffee. Jeff, give us a little glimpse, if you will, a portrait
Yes.
of your coffee routine.
Yes. So the night before, I will load up my cone,
Okay.
my metal filter.
Would you say this was like 'twas the night before coffee?
Yes, every night is 'twas the night before coffee at my
Okay.
house. So I grind up the beans, I get it ready to go in the metal filter, and in the morning when I come downstairs bright and early, all I have to do is hit the button.
How many buttons?
Just one button.
one button.
One touch. Okay. Yep. And it puts me through those cycles. You got the bloom cycle, you got
Right.
the brew cycle, and the last one isn't really a cycle. It's just
No.
simply ready.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
It comes down into the carafe. Mm-hmm. You pour it off. Cup for your wife, cup for yourself.
Yep, exactly. I pour a cup, I deliver it upstairs to my beautiful wife, and then fill it for myself, and it's great.
Okay, but let me guess.
Yep.
Some days the coffee is good, but other days it's kind of wretched. It's sort of hit and miss.
No, quite the opposite, Dave. It is consistently great, perfect every single time.
Wow.
Yep, it's wonderful. Yep.
So could our listeners perhaps support this podcast with a purchase and at the same time improve their own coffee experience, make it Winkle-esque?
They certainly could. If they want to invest in the Ratio 4, your desktop kind of office model, the midshipman, the Ratio 6,
Which you used to have?
I did, and then or the flagship, the Ratio 8. All they need to do is go to ratiocoffee.com/adnauseum. Right.
And then what do they need to do?
Well, then they need to type in this coupon code.
I'll help you out.
Please
'cause It's
do.
a little bit complicated.
Yes.
It's like a title by Wenham.
Yeah.
AN ratio, ANRATIO
Yes.
2025.
That's the one, right? And if you do that, that will get you $20 off your entire order.
You will not regret picking up the Ratio 4. I understand you might say, I've looked at those machines. The 8, the 6, those they take a little bit of scratch.
They do.
Fair enough, but you'll never have to replace it.
That's right.
The 4, however, is really quite attainable.
Yes.
And while I was in Uganda, the coffee was excellent quality.
Uganda's famous for its
It's
coffee. Yeah.
fantastic. I brought you some.
Yes, thank you very much.
The delivery method, not as good as Ratio. So I was very happy to come home to my Ratio with my high quality Ugandan coffee.
Now, so you brought some Ugandan coffee home, and so
you
you can
betcha.
compare the two. Excellent.
Absolutely.
Yes. Check it out.
Jeff, are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready, Dave, for art that truly speaks to your story?
I'm ready.
Well, meet Della, a Tucson-based oil painter who captures the people, places, and moments you cherish with breathtaking detail. She has showcased her work in multiple galleries, illustrated books, and is often commissioned for standout projects. You can see her current works for sale at her website, dellachelpka.art. That's DELLACHELPKA.art. To find your inspiration, visit dellachelpka.art, and Dave, use the coupon code
Apelles.
Who's Apelles?
Apelles is the most famous painter of antiquity. He's featured in one of my favorite little Moss stories.
Is that right?
Yeah, Apelles, the great painter. Fantastic Greek painter, APELLES. And when you enter that coupon code at checkout, what do you get, Jeff?
You get your special ad nauseum discount of 10% off.
Check it out. Okay, Jeff, so we have time to cover a few chapters,
Yes.
right, in this large book.
Yes.
Do you think we're going to be able to wrap it up this time, or what do you think?
I don't think so. And if you're a longtime listener, you know this is a common refrain. We always have these grand plans of wrapping things up quickly. But as we were just talking off air, Dave, and I would rather do something well than try to rush through it.
Yes.
So this is likely going to be a 3-parter.
So some topics, they may be more susceptible to rushing
Yeah.
Than others. This one clearly not.
No, clearly
because of its complexity, and I would say its significance for anyone who's interested in literary history, but especially for people of faith like ourselves.
Yeah.
Let's not be in a big hurry.
That's right. So we're on to chapter 7?
That's correct.
Okay.
Chapter 7, perhaps the most fascinating chapter in the book in some ways. It is entitled The Date of Peter's Going to Rome.
Okay.
Now, cast your memory way back.
Yes.
Way back to Necropolis Now.
Yes. Yeah.
This was an episode that you entitled when we were at Vomitorium East.
That's right. Okay. I remember.
Going on 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Necropolis Now.
That was one, I believe it was about the tradition of Peter being buried beneath the high altar in St. Peter's Cathedral in the Vatican, right?
That's right.
Yes.
And we looked at that evidence and came up with the conclusion that it's probably accurate.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's not a slam dunk, I would say, but every time I revisit it, I'm more and more persuaded.
Yeah. Who's that guy? Keith something with the pesky little DNA?
Oh, Keith Morrison.
So that's the kind of forensic certainty that you're not going to get with Peter under the altar.
Right. So yes, but a number of bones were found down there, and according to some studies, they seem to be reflective of an older man in his 60s or 70s of Semitic origin. So there's these pieces that point to they belong to Peter. Yes.
All right. So let's start out with a little preview of the chapter summary, and then we'll get into some of the nit and grit.
Let's do it.
For many centuries, says Wenham, page 146, the Church of Rome held that Peter arrived there after his escape from prison in 42. So in the book of Acts, an angel lets him out. He comes to the door. He knocks. He says to Rhoda, "I'm here," and nobody will believe her that Peter's out of prison. He has to knock several times. After that, supposedly, the tradition says, he fled Jerusalem and went to Rome to preach. So, a great weight of modern authority, says Wenham, has been against this, yet there have been voices on the other side, preeminent among them Edmundson, whose Bampton lectures of 1913, the church in Rome in the first century, went almost unnoticed. There is a fourfold argument. Number one, there was a world-famous church in Rome in 57 with which Paul had had contact for some years. Number two, a well-grounded tradition says that its foundation was laid by Peter in the second year of Claudius. So Claudius began to rule in 41.
Yes.
41 to 54.
That's right.
I believe Nero started in 54, finished up in 68.
That's right.
Turned the lights out, so to speak.
Yep.
To continue, Wenham, this agrees with the tradition that the apostles were dispersed from Jerusalem 12 years after the ascension. It also explains the remarkable interest in Simon the magician in the book of Acts. Justin Martyr tells how Simon also went to Rome in the reign of Claudius, and there had a great conflict with Peter. So Justin Martyr is early evidence, really.
Okay.
Point 3, Wenham. This tradition fits without difficulty into the account of Peter in Acts. And point 4, Rome's claim to Petrine foundation was unchallenged throughout the church.
Okay. All right.
So then, Jeff, as the chapter develops, he goes through each one of these particular instances, each of the four, and Wenham is inclined to prove each one of them and to say, yes, this is accurate. Why that's important is because it helps us date the composition of the Gospel of Mark.
Right.
And it makes the external evidence then suggest that Mark was not prior. There is no Markan priority from which Matthew and Luke, with the combination of the supposed Q document,
Right.
Combine to form their own gospels.
Yes. Okay. Hey, I wanted to mention, I found this website.
Okay.
It's the Wittenberg Door Campus Ministry. It's WittenbergComo, COMO.com.
Okay.
And they have lots of different commentary on various aspects of church history and theology. And they have a number of articles about Wenham's book.
Oh, really?
And so I was looking into it and they raised some kind of really interesting kind of counterpoints.
Would you say they're good faith?
Oh, definitely good faith, right?
Okay.
By and large, they're the authors are very impressed with Wenham's documents,
Right.
but they do call attention to, well, maybe this isn't quite as strong as Wenham.
So give a little pushback then.
Yeah. So, for example, in this chapter, which deals with dating Peter's time in Rome,
Right.
They say, well, Wenham makes the argument that Peter, one of the reasons he goes to Rome is because of what Simon Magus is doing there.
Right.
And
to counter him.
And they the Wittenberg Door argues, well, that's tenuous, right? That's
Okay.
you're really just making a broad interpretation. There's no really hard evidence for that. And then they also argue that this and I guess others have as well, this 12-year period,
Yes.
post ascension,
Yes.
is apocryphal, and that the number 12 is a little bit too on the nose, and so that too also doesn't really have a strong basis. And so I'm curious as how Wenham really deals with these things.
Well, I mean, I'm before saying what Wenham says, I just like to say that ancient time frames are so different than today. Right, that it's mentioned as 12 years and there's 12 apostles. It could have been 11 years or 13. They just weren't as concerned with chronology.
This is very true.
As we are. They didn't have watches. They didn't have, calendars in the same sense. They're just not as concerned. So
yeah,
to me, that's not a strong objection.
Okay. All right. Yeah, fair enough. Yep.
I want to read here from page 154 where he's citing Professor Dodd. He says, Dodd makes the pertinent comment. When the Neronian persecution broke out, the Christians of Rome were, quote, a large body, according to 1 Clement, an immense multitude, according to Tacitus Annals. Before the end of the first century, the evidence of Christian burials is available in the earliest parts of the catacombs. Under Domitian, there were Christians among the aristocracy and even in the imperial family. Perhaps the faith had penetrated upwards from the slaves and freedmen of Caesar's household, who were Christians when Paul wrote to Philippi, Philippians chapter 4. At any rate, we may infer that the church, which in AD 64 could be represented as a public danger, and in spite of the persecution made such remarkable progress in the following decades, was already numerous and perhaps influential when Paul addressed his letter to it.
Good. Now, so I just keeping our kind of a broader audience in mind. So the argument goes that in Tacitus, who was not Christian,
right,
records the story of the fire in Rome,
right,
and the tide starts to turn against Nero and the rumor starts to spread that he started this grand fire
Right.
at 64. And so to counteract that, Nero spreads a counter rumor that it was the Christians behind it. So the argument is that if the Christians weren't a large known group,
Right.
why would he have picked them?
It wouldn't have worked.
It would not have worked.
You
Right.
gotta pin this on someone, right?
Right.
Why is there so much brutal, bitter, cold snow in West Michigan?
Yeah.
It's the podcasters.
That's right. So let's get them.
Yeah. Now that may be an irreverent analog because, it's not like Nero and the persecution of Christians.
No,
But
of
you
course
get
not.
the idea.
Yes. Yeah. And what about what does he have to say about Simon Magus?
Right. So this is on page 163. This is really interesting. He's quoting this scholar Edmundson, right, who maintains the traditional account of Peter in Rome. He says, Edmundson, in his account of the earliest days of the Roman Church, compares them with those in Antioch. Events at Rome probably followed on precisely the same lines. Just as the men of Cyprus and Cyrene, in the face of persecution, made their way back to their own homes, carrying with them the message of the gospel, so would it be with some of the sojourners of Rome belonging to the synagogue of the Libertines. They would return to the capital, inspired by the spirit and example of St. Stephen, to form there the first nucleus of a Christian community. As I have already suggested, St. Paul's salutation to Andronicus and Junius seems to point to these two men as the leaders of this first missionary band. Among those converted would be, as at Antioch, both Jews and Gentiles. Some time may have elapsed before any news of these first small beginnings of Christianity in Rome reached Jerusalem. Possibly St. Peter's intercourse with Cornelius the centurion and his relatives and friends at Caesarea first made him acquainted with the fact that the gospel had obtained a foothold in the capital, for the body of troops to which Cornelius belonged, the cohors Italica, consisted of volunteers from Italy. From this source as well, he may in due course have learnt that Simon Magus was in Rome, and that there, as in Samaria previously, he was proclaiming himself, quote, to be the great power of God, and was leading many astray by his magical arts. This information, in any case, whether derived from Cornelius or from Roman Christians who came up for the feasts, would reach the apostles about the time when their 12 years' residence in Jerusalem was drawing to a close, and when, according to tradition, they divided among themselves separate spheres of missionary work abroad. To St. Peter, as the recognized leader, it may well have been that the charge of the Christian church in the imperial capital should have been assigned as the post of honor. If so, it will be seen that the persecution of Herod Agrippa only hastened on a journey already planned. After his imprisonment and escape, Peter's first object would be to place himself out of the reach of the persecutor and to set about his voyage as quickly as possible. If so, his arrival at Rome would be in the early summer of 42 A.D., the very date given by Jerome.
That's interesting. And I'm really glad you read that, because it's very clear that Wenham is arguing that Peter doesn't just go to Rome because he's hot on the heels of Simon Magus. There's a lot more involved.
Oh, yeah.
There, right?
The persecution, the decision,
Right.
Apparently to divide up the different spheres of missionary activity.
Rome as a place of honor, and
Right.
Peter is one of the premier disciples. It can naturally fall to him.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a lot more there. Yeah.
Now, in my own thinking about these events, such as it is, I read Philip Schaff, the famous 19th century father of American church history, the Mercersburg guy. He wrote this 7 volumes, History of the Christian Church. He was very involved in the Nicene and post-Nicene Fathers collection. And Schaff makes the point that there's not one shred of evidence in the New Testament that Peter was in Rome. And that's true. However, the tradition is unanimous. It doesn't establish Peter as any kind of bishop or pope. So some of those claims by the Roman Church I remain very skeptical about. But since that time, and Wenham supports this, I am convinced that Peter was in Rome.
Yes.
When he got there, how long he stayed, was it 25 years as the Roman Church claims? I don't know. But I'm now completely convinced he was there.
Yeah. No. Same here. No, definitely. So how does the chapter wrap up then?
Yes, so he goes through each of these 4 elements in the argument for Peter's presence in Rome. The last one is page 171. Rome's claim to Petrine foundation was unchallenged throughout the church.
Okay.
So he quotes Edmundson, this other scholar on whom he's relying, and then he says, quote, the argument is cumulative. Paul seems to have regarded this large and world-famous church as having a founder. An immensely strong tradition, accepted by the most learned men in the early church, says that its foundation was laid by Peter in the 2nd year of the reign of Claudius. That
would be 42.
That's correct. This is indirectly and independently confirmed by the traditions concerning the apostles' 12-year stay in Jerusalem and concerning Peter's confrontation with Simon Magus in Rome. The movements of Peter and Mark, as seen in the rest of the New Testament, readily fit in. The tradition was unchallenged throughout the church. If this ancient tradition, we're now on page 172, can be reestablished as one of the probabilities of history, as I believe it should be, it will revolutionize our understanding of the history of the Apostolic Church and will encourage a reconsideration of the dating of the Gospels.
All right, so this, yeah, I mean, he brings it back around there. So this isn't just an argument about when Peter was in Rome. It's a linchpin in his whole reconfiguration of the dating of the Synoptics.
Okay,
Yep.
Exactly. So that wraps up chapter 7. We could maybe just take a little peek into what's coming next.
Yes.
And set up the next episode where we will wrap up this fabulous book.
Yes.
So chapter 8, Mark's Gospel, the rather unimpressive title, Further Considerations.
It doesn't really kind of quicken the blood, does
No,
it?
but what I think it is it's just when I'm saying, look, I got a lot of material. I did a lot of research. I got to find a place to put it.
All right.
Chapter 9, Ancient Testimony to Luke's Gospel. So he's going, a little bit at a time. And then I suppose chapter 10 is the real payoff. So those of you who have been following along, you're going to want to hear this. How were the Gospels written? Chapter 10, what's the theory of composition that he's putting forward? Chapter 11, Jesus tradition, oral and written.
Okay.
So what explains the so-called logia, right? The wise sayings of Jesus, which are in the Gospels, repeated almost verbatim. Where did they come from?
Right.
Then chapter 12, the big payoff, when were the Gospels written?
Yeah.
And so since Wenham's whole project is to say, these are really early documents, not late first century, certainly not second, but early to mid first century.
That's right. All right. Well, I look forward to kind of seeing where this goes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah.
Well, we got to get out of here, Jeff.
We
And
do.
Is there any particular reason?
Did you hear some? I heard the doorbell ringing. I heard
I
some
hope
pounding.
so.
Yeah.
I got an oven guy coming today to do some oven fixing.
Is that all it is? Is your oven guy?
I don't know.
That's not very interesting. There's not some.
You know what kind of hat he wears?
What's that?
Stovetop.
I have to meet this guy.
That's all I got today.
That's all you got?
And
All
it comes at the end of the episode.
It does. But, okay, we'll get Stovetop in here in 1 second. But, Dave, I believe we do have time for those in our audience who want to learn some Greek and some Latin, and you can help them.
I can, although we didn't actually read any Greek today. We talked about Greek a lot.
We did talk
about the Gospels. So, yeah, if you want to learn some Greek, I have just the program for you. We just ran our Black Friday Monsai.
Oh, I love it.
So you missed that. But we still have a 10% coupon, 10 plus 10 PLUS, anywhere on latinperdiem.com. Check out Moss Method. I have students from all over the world. I just signed up a guy from Ireland. Now he's studying Latin with me. But I got a guy in New York studying Greek. There's one in Amsterdam, some in Australia. Local Will, Distant Ron, these kinds of guys.
Yeah.
This program will take you from
neophyte to erudite.
That's correct. Got a big stack of Greek books right on the table here.
I'm looking right at them, yeah.
That's right. I've taken all the last 25 plus years of my own learning and teaching and crammed it into this course.
Yeah.
So it's a smorgasbord of Greek knowledge. It's going to give you the confidence that you always wanted but never had, even if you studied Greek previously.
Fantastic.
I had a guy just tell me today, if you'll indulge me, or a couple days ago, Trent is his name. He said, I'm only on the 5th lesson of Moss, Module 1, but I can already feel my knowledge of Greek expanding rapidly.
That's great.
I said, that's exactly what I told you would happen.
That is really cool.
Good job. So latinperdiem.com, check it out. Whom do we need to thank?
As always, Mishka, our wonderful engineer, turns this around so quickly, makes us sound way better than we actually do.
Yes.
And how about this guitarist?
Well, I want to say something else about Mishka.
Yeah,
if I
please,
can.
yeah.
So not only has she been doing excellent work for now on 5 years there in the place where she lives, but she also does theatrical production.
Yeah.
Like costumes and set design and lights. She's a woman of many talents.
Fantastic.
So thank you, Mishka, for all your hard work. And Jeff Sheets.
Jeff Sheets, this great guitarist. Where's he? He's from Kansas City?
Kansas City. I tell you that every time.
I know.
Michael.
I have
Do I need to
trouble.
draw you a map?
I do. I need a map.
You're still in Jinja.
Yes, this Kansas City guitarist and disc dogger.
That's correct. He has a collection of dogs who are world champion competitors at retrieving these discs, these frisbees that are thrown through the air. They do all kinds of acrobatics.
Yes.
At the opening of basketball games and hockey games and so forth.
It's incredible.
Amazing.
The air that these animals can
Absolutely.
get. Yeah,
They're
incredible.
Border collies and Australian shepherds. But the guy can play the guitar.
Yeah,
so
what are the name of the songs? The
Thrill
snippets?
Seeker.
Thrill Seeker.
Right, which is the thrill of studying the classics, I'd like to say.
Indeed.
And then for the intro and outro music, the bumper music on the ads, it's called Rush Hour.
Rush Hour. Yeah,
So
perfect.
check out his work, jeffsheets.com. There's a Z on the end of Sheets. Don't forget the Z.
Yep. And hey, if you want to shout out, if you want have an idea for an episode, you just want to contact us and tell us how much you love this show, you can write to Dave.
You're really reaching there, aren't you, Winkle?
You can write to Dave at adnauseam.com. Don't forget that V.
And please write to Jeff at adnauseam, ADNAVSEAM, at adnauseam.com. Don't forget that V. Tell Jeff that you're a great admirer of his calm and winsome ways and all that he puts up with when it comes to his co-host.
Yeah, I'd appreciate
He'd
that.
appreciate that. So, Jeff, we know where we're going next week, don't we?
We're going to wrap this up. Yeah,
Part 3 of this.
Yep.
Are we ever going to get back to Maru?
Probably Maru on the other side of this, wrapping this up, I'm thinking.
Maybe some Ovidian vignettes, maybe a digression into a Greek tragedy. There's so much we could do.
There's so much. Yep.
So much rich material.
Indeed. But we got to get out of here. And Dave, I believe you have our gustatory parting shot.
I do. It's from Enid Blyton. Do you know the name Enid Blyton?
No, I've never heard that.
This is an extraordinarily prolific British author of children's books.
Okay.
My kids have read so much Enid Blyton.
Is that right?
The Famous Five. So this is... You don't know that?
I know. I've never heard of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
You should look her up, Enid Blyton. This is from her work, Five Go Off in a Caravan.
All right.
It was either that or The Town and Country, I guess, but those are vehicle references.
There we go. Yeah.
All right, so she says, soon they were all sitting on the rocky ledge, which was still warm, watching the sun go down into the lake. It was the most beautiful evening, with a lake as blue as a cornflower and the sky flecked with rosy clouds. Rosy-fingered clouds. They held their hard-boiled eggs in one hand and a piece of bread and butter in the other, munching happily. There was a dish of salt for everyone to dip their eggs into. Are you into egg dipping?
I am not. But
You've never dipped a hard-boiled egg into salt?
I'm not an egg guy.
What?
Sorry, yeah. Yes. So that to me that sounds disgusting.
No, it's great.
But
I'm not done.
But okay, please go on.
I don't know why, but the meals we have on picnics always taste so much nicer than the ones we have indoors, said George.
It's a lovely passage.
It's nice, isn't it?
It is very
don't
nice.
you like to eat on vacation and picnic in odd places? They taste better?
Yeah, as long as there's no eggs involved, I'm perfectly
You don't
happy.
like eggs?
No, I do not.
I found some eggs in that liminal space I was in at the airport.
Oh, I bet you did.
Oh, man.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.